André, how you doing, mate?
I'm very good. How are you, sir?
Good, yeah, not too bad. And of course, once again, we have a very special guest with us today.
We do.
Vern, owner of Action Coach Horsham.
Good evening.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. So we're really excited to hear basically about the man Vern, about action coaching, what you do, how you got there, the journey, your learnings, what we can take away from that, what your potential clients can take away from it, and just have a bit of fun today.
Brilliant. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So, yeah, Vern, just start by telling us then, just a little bit about your journey. So how did you get to be owner of Action Coach Horsham? What's the stories and steps that led you to that?
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey. Do you want the long version or the concise
Hey, what the fun version, mate?
The
Always.
fun version.
Yeah.
Well, I remember my first sight of light. Not that far back, right?
It depends how graphic you're going to be.
I'm still waiting for my first sign of light.
Fantastic.
Fast forward 45 years. No, I think we basically moved to the UK in 2018 as a family, which has been an exciting journey. Found myself working as a Costa area manager. And within 2 years, I went from a trainee store manager to running 9 stores, which was exciting. They were far apart, which meant that I had a lot of time to myself, driving and learning more about this wonderful country, and opened up a restaurant during lockdown for the franchise, which was very interesting, having contracted COVID myself, trying to arrange furniture and kitchen equipment from Spain and Italy was very, very interesting during those days. But it was fun. But about 2 years ago, I decided to venture out in the business coaching world. After spending a lot of time in senior management, where I always worked with people, developing teams, working with the business owners on how we can grow businesses. I've always been in sales. My wife said to me, well, why don't you, for a change, try and do this for yourself? And so in June 2023, I started business coaching as a business owner, or later, as I figured out, as a self-employed person. And then about 18 months later, I was looking for a structure. I was looking for support, because going it alone is tough, man. As you guys will know, can be a very lonely place. No one to bounce ideas off of, no one to really sense check whether or not this is working. You can be so positive, but at the same time lie to yourself.
Everything around you on fire, but it's fine. Just keep smiling.
We're going. And then getting in touch with Action Coach through a mate of mine who was being coached, Jamie from GCS. I don't know if I can punt him in on this, but he's a great business guy. He also happens to be the first mate I really made in the UK, and just hearing his own journey, being coached properly, and the success and lifestyle he's got as a result, really made me look into Action Coach. And as a result, became a firm owner.
Fantastic. So how does one find themselves an area manager of Costa? How did that happen? Were you lost and then found into that role? What was the pedigree that sort of led you to that and that sort of a role?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, because it is a bit of finding out. I think the retail industry always has a high demand for people that can do the job, and a need for people that can do a job adequately enough to keep moving the business forward and things together. And I think the need and opportunity was there for someone to fill the space, and then being a person that can step into that and available and willing to do it. Obviously, the skill set's important. You need to be able to work with people well and understand figures and that. But really, the willingness to learn, step into that space, and then run with it was very helpful. Obviously, you have to learn on the job, not coming from retail before. But it it was just, I think, being available, being open for the chance to step into that space, and being recognized really as someone who could do that.
Nice. I mean, obviously, we went from that first sight of light to 45 years later. We skipped a very important step there, which was obviously the move to the UK.
Yeah.
I went through the same. I'm not going to get into that. But what made you go, you know what, I want to give that a shot?
Yeah. What, the move?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite obviously a personal thing to me. We didn't run away from the country. We weren't unhappy. There's no one chasing me.
I just hear a knock on the door or someone.
There's no GPS location.
There's a white van outside.
It's to be honest with you, I've always been bivocational in what I do. So I'm actually theologically trained. So I'm a pastor by trade. And so the reason we came over here is because we felt a call to this country, and the doors opened. We tried different avenues to get into different countries, like genuinely applied ourselves. And those doors just were shut. And when those doors shut, we reset. And we said, okay, we were looking at the UK, we were looking at the States and staying in South Africa. I felt that we should go to the States. My wife felt we should go to the UK. We found out who won now, obviously. Not that it was a competition.
Surprise.
There's still time, Ben. There's still time.
Yeah, it still is.
You're part way there, right? Just across the ocean, you'll be fine.
But what happened is just, when the 9th time we tried to get into the States, and really at point number 99 it would fall flat. We just hit reset and said, okay, let's just start from scratch. That's when this opportunity to come to the UK opened up. And from when we said yes until we landed was 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
8 weeks. We had to get our visa sorted. We had to get the passport sorted. I sat in front of the interviewing agent, and she was like, so why are you leaving? Is it because of the political situation? Is there any? I said, no, because we felt the call to come here. And it's amazing when you follow that call that things start to take place. It's kind of like stepping out on the water. And that's what happened for us, the door opened, we stepped through that door of opportunity, and things started falling in place. And it's similar with the journey into the area manager role,
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And obviously you talk about this call, and we had Lynn from Feng Shui a couple of weeks ago, last week actually. And if you guys haven't watched the episode, please go and watch that, because it's really interesting. And the whole concept of just following that call that you've got, following your gut instinct. But obviously a lot of us have that call to follow that gut instinct and get into opening their own business. Where do you step in terms of, actually, yes, you should follow what you dream of and what you're good at, but actually, how do you identify, you're very good at what you do, you want to open your business, but you need to learn other things as well, because obviously, owning your own business requires a lot of other skills that, some of us just don't have. How do you go about identifying that lack of skills, or skills that need to be developed?
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is that most business owners are really good at what they do because they love it. That's why they're doing it, right? It's like kind of like duh. But not a lot of business owners are really good at running a business. There's three main areas: time, team, and money that they normally pour in. Either they really bad at planning their diaries and scheduling, and it's always the burning issues that gets treated first and all the time, and the things that are urgent and important get left. And sometimes they just don't have a clue how to manage their money effectively. It's like this big ogre sitting in the cupboard, and when they open it and all the receipts fall out, they don't know where to start. And the same with team is often people are good at working by themselves, but not great at working or playing with others or leading others. And so that's where it's helpful to have credible others in your corner that you can turn to and say, hey, how am I doing in this area? Is there anything that I need to be aware of? both positive and negative. Maybe you're doing correct. Because interestingly, I recently chatted to one of my clients that I'm coaching, and he had accomplished so much in such a short time, so well. And he was just like under pressure. It's like, I've got to do so much. And I hit the pause button. I said, let's just zoom out for a minute and see what you have accomplished and how well you've accomplished it. And so sometimes it's not just the negative things or the things where you're lacking, but it's also recognizing the things that you are doing well at. And that then creates a bit of clarity where you can go like, okay, this area is covered. Okay, I'm all right there. Let's identify the areas where there's maybe a lack, and that lack could be understanding. Lack could be just knowing the game players, the pieces on the chessboard that are there to be moved around, and identifying the pieces that are still required, and then being able to effectively maneuver it and utilize what you've got to your availability. I'm a big proponent of open hands. If you have open hands, things can be put in and taken out. If you grab hold of something and you hold on, your hands are closed, you cannot receive. But sometimes we hold on to the wrong things. And if our hands is clasped, those credible others who are supposed to be in our corner helping us can't take it out for us so that we can receive what we need to have for the moment. And so I think there's a fine dance that exists in business ownership. It's the ability to lead, but also sometimes to follow a bit of input to bolster the areas that requires support.
Yes, and I really do. I sort of commend that approach really, because one of the things, and I don't know, André, I think we've almost heard it as well from our own journeys, but when we've been speaking with other people in the same sort of line of work that you do, there is a lot of this whole, don't worry about what you're good at it, let's focus on what you're not. But actually, you need to really reflect on where you are actually very strong, because
100%.
That's a scaffold that you need to build on. So, I mean, one of the things that really resonates with me is one of my other roles, as people know, well, a lot of people know, is I'm a GP, but I'm also a GP trainer. So I have lots of trainees that I have who are kind of sitting their last year before they become fully qualified. And when we're going through watching their consultations and giving feedback, a lot of the times my trainees say to me, "Oh, Sam, just tell me what I need to improve. Just tell me what I didn't do right. Just tell me what I didn't. I just need to know, how to form a plan to get this better." I say, well, "Sure, we'll get to that, but actually, I want to know what you think you did well.
Yeah,
and I'm going to tell you if what I saw mirrors that, and you can challenge me back, because we need to have that scaffolding for you to build on.
Yeah.
If you keep focusing on, I need to make this better and make that better, there's every chance that then the things that you are doing well will fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
Because you forget to focus on actually the fact that this was a very good X, Y, and Z that you did, because that's something that comes naturally to you.
Yeah.
So don't forget that. Have that in your mind. Otherwise, we're not developing. We're just kind of putting out fires.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever heard the story of the Animal Olympics?
No. Enlighten us.
Right. So it's very interesting. I love the story. So let's say there was the eagle, there was the lion, there was the rabbit, there was a tortoise, and there was a squirrel. And they were all training for the Animal Olympics. And so the coach came in and said, right, I want to make sure that you all do well at the decathlon. And in order to do well at the decathlon, we need to really work hard on your ability to perform well at all the disciplines. Right, so you, Eagle, you're going to practice 10 hours a day in the swimming pool because you suck at swimming. You, Lion, you really need to practice flying. So you're going to go on the trampoline and jump from tree to tree so that you can learn to fly. Okay, you, Rabbit, you really suck at tree climbing. So you're going to practice tree climbing. So that's what they did. They listened to their coach. It was really great. And they just, they did their best. And the first week, everybody was a little bit excited and it was great and a little bit bruised, a little bit battered, especially the lion, because, he didn't do so great at flying yet, but he's determined. He's going to succeed. He's going to become the best flying lion ever. And the rabbit, he really, really is excitable. It's just, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. It's just, I'm going to have, this is going to be the thing for me. I'm going to be the best tree climber ever. But he did put a creak in his tail because he fell on his backside the first attempt. And then the eagle, I mean, it was a little bit touch and go for him during the first week of training. He nearly drowned a few times. Wet feathers and the like doesn't do well with breaststroke. So anyway, so this continued. And the coach was a very, very motivational speaker. He was exciting and he was really inspiring. And so, the animals would come in a little bit bruised and battered, and then he would G them up and get them ready for another week of training. In the end, as you can imagine, the story goes, none of them did well. They all had severe injuries. The morale was down. I mean, mentally they were shattered. The rabbit looked like he lost 20 years of his life, and he was basically just creaking in. The moral of the story is, yes, it is important to get better at the areas where we're not good at. But that's why we've got team. That's why we get a team that's diverse. We get a team that's got strengths that I don't have. What's the point of hiring people that can do what I do? What are we going to do after a few weeks? We're all going to do the same thing and then sit twiddling our thumbs because those things are done. None of us want to do the things that we don't like doing. Or do we actually hire wisely people that are different from us, people that are skilled better at the things that we're not skilled at? I suck at cold calling. I was much better at it when I was younger. But when I started the firm, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we understand the process. So I did the calling. Man, it killed me. So I spoke to my coach, and he was like, "No, you can do this. Anyone can do this. Just get over it. You can." And I understood what he was doing, and it was great because we didn't understand each other yet. Didn't really know our strengths yet, and then I was like, okay, I'm just going to focus. I'm going to set my RAS. I'm going to get this right. First call went great. Second call went okay. Third call, man, did I do the right thing? Oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have chosen this. My wife was wrong. Everybody's wrong. I'm packing up, Soul destroying.
Yeah, of course.
So absolute soul destroying. Yeah. So I hired a telemarketing company, and they're doing so much greater than I do. And I don't feel bad anymore. And I can focus on the things that I'm good at. I'm great at meeting people, chatting to people face to face. So let me focus on the things that I'm good at and let somebody else who's really good. So I'm listening to the calls and they're rocking it. Where I would have been, okay, sorry that I phoned. They're just so natural at overcoming those obstacles and objections and still getting a great outcome for the people. Surely that's what team is about.
That's it. Yeah. But how do you go on about finding that and identifying that? Because obviously you start your own business like we have, and it's quite, I think you need to be a really modest person to be able to sit down and come to terms and just be like, actually, like I really can't do this bit of the business.
Yeah.
How do you help new business owners identify those key points and actually overcome them? Is it just a case of, let's find someone who can help you in that area, or do you also give them like tips and tricks on how to improve that side of things?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. It's all of the above. One of the things that really interested me is how often good relationships develop between coachee and coach. Because you really get to understand the person. You really get to understand what makes them tick. And let me ask you this question. What kind of person do you want in your corner? Someone that's going to ignore who you are, ignore what your strengths and weaknesses are, and just blunder ahead, telling you what you should do, 10 to 1 moan at you when you don't do it, but it's seen as, putting steel in your backbone, Or do you want somebody that understands when to push and when to pull, when to encourage, when to challenge?
I think it's obviously the latter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess the former would be a spouse. I don't. Is that how it works?
I see a lot of counselling in the future. So to answer your question is this: you want somebody that cares enough about you and your business, that has a proven system in place, that can help you deliver the things that you want to deliver. That doesn't dream for you, but dreams with you. That doesn't push you into an area that you don't want to go, but actually helps you achieve the dreams that you want to achieve. And that's what I found. That's what I've experienced. And I'm a very black and white kind of person, right and wrong kind of person. Do it A, B, C, D, and then you will achieve X, Y, and Z. But what I've realized, and in my own coaching journey with my coach, is actually the system is there to support you, not to run you. And that's often a mistake a lot of business owners make, is they think once they've installed a system, that the system is, I've got a system, it's working. No. The business owner creates the system. The system runs the business. Your people run the system, and you manage and lead your people.
So let's talk about that then. So the leadership element.
Yeah.
So this is a huge topic, of course, but what do you see, or what do you find in your role as action coach are the common themes, shall we say, where people think they're doing it right, and actually there is an element they're perhaps not seeing, or conversely, people who are doing it very well that can really exude that kind of shining beacon. What are the elements that you see commonly, either good or less good, in terms of how that works?
Do you mean in regards to how people approach the potential of coaching, or business, or mindset?
I guess the leadership within. So you mentioned about the fact that, as business owners, you've got to be good leaders, right?
Yeah.
Particularly, I think this applies to every business owner, but yes, more obviously, if you have a team, you've got to be able to lead them.
Yeah.
If you don't have a team, you still got to be very good at having leadership now, in terms of what you're doing in the world around you. But in that, say, example of a business where there is a team of people, and the business leader or the business director owner is maybe struggling with elements that they're not quite sure what it is, but you might identify it as a leadership issue.
Yeah.
What are the sort of things that you see in that respect, or that work either very well or less well?
Yeah, I think one big issue is people conflate leadership and management. They use it interchangeably, when really it's two very different things. In very high level terms, and I know this can come in for a bit of criticism, but you manage people when they're not delivering and performing according to the agreed to results, and you lead them when they've got the momentum. They've reached a place where they maybe they've taken some ownership. Because when people are not doing what is required, it's often something that they don't know how to do it. Maybe it's a skill level. Maybe it's a belief, a limiting belief. Maybe it's a system of values that they carry into that. And maybe it's an identity issue that's blocking and stopping them. It's part of the identity iceberg, if you've never come across it. Maybe those are the different levels that you need to address, but you manage that, because that person is not able to do it for themselves. They're not able to make the adjustment themselves, clearly because they're not meeting the requirements. Whereas a person who has a certain ability to self-lead, which is the first level of leadership, they don't need you to come in and say, okay, how many calls did you make? What did you say to that person? How did you handle that? That's managing. But you can come in alongside them and lead them and say, okay, so you've achieved this. What is the next step? How can we take this further? It's a very different tone and a very different approach that you take in those two different instances. And when it comes to a business owner, I think one of the biggest obstacles for a business owner, first and foremost, is being willing to hear the hard truths of the. We don't like to hear when we suck at something. Come on. I'm the best husband out there. Just ask my wife, right? I'm the best dad out there. Just ask my kids, right?
We will follow you up on that, Vern. Yes. Emails will be sent.
Yes. They're currently in South Africa and they've got no signal. But we do. If you're wired like me, by the way, a very helpful tool is understanding how you are wired, and we use a disc profiling system. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant tool, not to define you, but to help you understand how you see the world and how you see others and how you interact with the world and with others. And also a tool for others to know how to interact with you. So we use that. One of the things we do with our clients is we ask them to do a DISC assessment, because it helps us better lead you and coach you and guide you, understanding what motivates you. Understand, I'm a high I. So I'm people, if you haven't noticed yet. And the way that one of the weaknesses of a high I is we don't like to let people down, and we don't like to feel embarrassed, because then we failed, right? And so for me to be challenged on my leadership, I would feel like a failure immediately. And I'd have to get over that first before you get to what's going on in here that's contributing to my leadership. And so what is very, very important in our process of working with people, we want to understand and assess how coachable are they. You know, I've been in counseling for over 20 years. And some of the things that we want to see is are people humble enough to receive input? Are people teachable? Because you can have a sense of humility but not be teachable. Are you willing to be accountable? But you're only as accountable as you want to be, right? Nobody can force you to say exactly what's going on in your life. And sometimes that's a journey. It's an incredible journey when you start with somebody who is a little bit guarded, and then they open up. Once they start opening up and the trust grows, then the depth of conversation changes, and that's really when change happens. And so to get people to understand their leadership, I think you got to get their hearts. Once you've got their hearts, then you get their heads. Once those two things start working together, then their hands spring into action. And sometimes that's a journey. If you've got a person who's a high D, for instance, they just want to get it done. They just want to move on, and they often the hands come in first. Just get it done, and then their head and the heart plays catch up. You know. But yeah, leadership is a touchy thing, because people might feel that they're inadequate as a leader, and so they might be closed off. And so we're very sensitive to that, very aware of that. And we really want to help people get the best out of themselves, their team, and their businesses. Because when you do that, then you get real freedom. And that is the freedom to choose what you do with your life.
So how do you deal with that then? So if I take these examples that you've given, right? So let's say, you know, you've identified somebody who is, you've done your profiling, and there's elements there that are maybe holding them back, or they maybe somebody who feels inadequate as a leader. And now, I guess to get to the bottom of that, you've got to go fairly deep, right? So what's the process behind that? And I mean, are you able to give any examples anonymously of things that have been quite profound in that respect? Yeah.
I think to answer that question is, you're not going to like it. It depends.
Sure, yeah.
It depends, because some people are more closed off because of past experiences, because of past hurt, maybe past failures. Maybe they are locked up for various reasons. And really, you need to find the key that unlocks that. Unlocks the heart, unlocks the thinking, and it will be different from person to person. For me, to be vulnerable personally, I'd experienced a lot of pain, a lot of disappointment, because I was quite opinionated, because I thought I knew everything, which I know you guys are going to say, nah, right? I was a tough nut to crack, because people needed to get past that veneer. I didn't want to look like I could have any kinks in my armor. I wanted to present that I knew everything. And it took a gentleman that I really respect and love to break through that. And it took a few years, actually. But he persisted. He really persisted with me, and he really intentionally showed me that he cared. And sometimes it takes that. It doesn't have to take years, just particularly and in the context of what we were. he was working on multiple levels with me. So it was quite layered. But often with clients, there are similar layers. There are things that they divulge easily and other things they don't divulge easily. Finances is a touchy issue. You know, we used to say, you touch the man's wallet, you touch his heart, right?
Depends where that wallet is, but sure, yeah.
You know, you easily find out where people's values and priorities lie when you touch their wallet. And so people might not be as free in sharing how they're doing financially as they would with how they're doing with their time. And so you have to find the avenue that reaches the heart.
What I'm hearing from you, though, and particularly relating it to your own personal journey there, you know, you're saying you're a tough nut to crack. You're saying that, you know, it took a while to do it. Well, I mean, yeah, of course it did. You're talking about breaking habits of a lifetime, aren't you? These are things that you've developed because of every bit of journey that you've had to that point, whether it be, you know, triumphs, whether it be traumas, whether it be things that worked out, didn't. That shaped the person that you are in whatever environment that may be. So to undo that, or at least modify it, of course, that's going to take a while for some people. And I think that's helpful to, I guess, hear a context of, I would say.
Yeah, I think the first thing to establish is, we call it know, like, and trust. You need to understand the level that your client knows, likes, and trusts you. Because if there is trust, right, then they will open up to you. And so often in the journey, we ask questions to get an understanding of where the person is at, so that we can put our finger on the pain points, the issues to discuss, and in this instance, leadership. And we need to understand how open they are to deal with leadership. And it also depends on where they are at in the journey. Especially in the beginning, there's a lot of know, like, and trust that's happening. They need to know my intentions and where they're going. They need to like the interaction, me as a person, how things are handled, and then trust that we're going to get to where we want to get. If you're further along the journey, then you can have a bit more of a frank conversation. And again, the personalities are quite helpful. Like a D type of person, they don't want long stories, man. Just tell them like it is. You know, an S type of person, you need to be a bit more sensitive how you phrase things and the pace at which you speak about things, because they might feel intimidated. A C type of person just want to know the facts. You need to give them a lot of information to process and almost like prove to them systematically and through the information that you provide that you can deliver and do. And the high type of person, you just need to be a good friend to them and they'll be happy, you know, like me. That's why I'm here, right? We met about 10 minutes ago, right? And I'm pouring out my heart.
Just saw you out on the street and thought, you'll do. let's bring you in for a podcast.
You got 10 minutes.
Yeah, put this on. Look like a business guy, right? And so helping people become better leaders is you have to understand who they are. You have to understand a bit of their journey. And questioning is playing a huge role in that. It's not questioning who they are, but asking the right type of questions to get to the heart of who they are. You will only be as good a leader as you're willing to understand yourself. You're only able to be as good a leader as you are willing to understand yourself. Because when the pressure is on, is how you're really going to lead or manage. If the pressure of performance is on you, your business is not producing, you don't have money in the bank, your team is not producing. If you don't have the wherewithal and the self-awareness in the moment of pressure, you're going to react rather than respond. Part of my privilege, and I really mean this, because I don't take it lightly, to work on those intricacies of a person's heart. You would know as a doctor, you know, as soon as you go into the body and working on the organs, there's so many things that comes to play, and you don't know if you're going to pull on this thing, what's going to happen necessarily. And it's the same working with people and on their hearts and on their mindset about themselves. And often I find people are at their worst when the pressure is up, especially when they do not have the ability to identify what's going on in here. So for me, it's a very, very, very important part of the process to help equip them to be better under fire. Because leadership starts with yourself. And that's a massive lesson I learned in my relationship with my wife. Yeah. The relationships closest to you is a reflection of how you will react when you're under pressure in a leadership situation.
That is so true.
And so yeah, there's some stories there, man. But that's a different podcast, right?
Yeah, lights go down, the whiskies come out. Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Leadership really is both an inward and an external journey.
How, obviously we're talking about leadership, and from the information you just passed on and what you just said, sometimes I'm sure you come across it as well, especially online. So many people think they can be business coaches and they want to teach you this and you will achieve that. And, well, no, it's a different approach. Your approach is very different, especially online. But I immediately, and maybe that's the kind of personality I have, it puts me in front of like a personal trainer almost, where sometimes you just feel that pushiness, like you must do this. Yes, you can do another one. Come on, let's go. And obviously for some people that works, and for some other people that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Your motto line is the best don't guess, they get coached.
Yeah.
How would you say that comparison between a business coach and a personal trainer is? Yeah. Do you think it's quite similar?
It's very similar. It's a very helpful analogy to use. I mean, which high performance person that you know about doesn't have a coach or multiple coaches for different areas and aspects?
Absolutely.
Right? If you knew it, you would be there. But then there will always be someone else who's further ahead than you that you can learn from. The problem is that I used to weigh 18 stone, 116 kilograms. And it was a journey to lose that weight. It wasn't easy. I tried so many times myself to do it. Fad diets, going to the gym, running, start, stop. In your own journeys, how many times have you started something and then didn't continue? You knew it was good for you, but yet there wasn't that ability to persist and push through. Often that is a great analogy or understanding to have of what a coach's role is. They're not there to do the job for you. What's the point of that? They're there to help you become a better version of yourself continuously, incrementally. Today is better than yesterday. Someone once said, if I'm in the same place today as what I was yesterday, I'm actually going backwards. Compared to who you could have been today, if you didn't reach that version of yourself, you're actually going backwards. And so a coach's role is to help you become a better version of yourself, not of someone else. Because that's inevitably what happens when we try and do it ourselves, is we compare ourselves to that person and that person. And I want to be like, one of the formulas I love of action coach is be, do, have. Be times do equals have. Who do I have to be? What do I have to do in order to have the things that I want? In my relationships, in my business, in my future. And that's the journey that I help people with. Is I help them become the people they want to become, doing the things they want to do in order to have the things that they want. But most people, and that's the problem with influencers and social media, they look at what others have and then they try and formulate a way to get those things, but they're focusing on the have. Here's the trick. When you focus on the be and you focus on being the right person and doing the right things to have the things that you want, the have takes care of itself. My wife, our relationship has never been better. Why? Because I realized in order to have the kind of relationship that I want with my wife, I need to be a specific kind of person. I've got to do certain things to make her feel loved, that makes her feel like I'm thinking of her. If I'm not the kind of person that she wants to be married to, doing the kind of things that speaks to her love language, what do I expect? It's the same thing with business. What kind of business do you want to have?
Oh, and that kind of like fulfills me in what I want to achieve, monetarily, financially, and also I think a big thing for us is also feel that you are representing your clients. And I think at the end of the day, you want to feel fulfilled with every single aspect of what you're trying to create.
So that's one of the things that we do is we help you clarify that. Because that's the normal business owner's answer, right?
Yeah.
is we're not, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, we're not quite clear on what our goals are, right?
I think because we're so concerned about, or not concerned, but we're so focused on like, this is what I'm good at and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, that we pursue that, but we actually fail to see everything else that goes around it.
And the business's goals then supersedes my personal goals, and I become a slave to the business rather than the business serve me.
And I think knowing and clarifying those goals, like you say, helping business owners actually know what they are. Yeah, that's huge, because otherwise, we are. I know I'm guilty of this, of having this image in my mind that I struggle to sometimes articulate, because it's huge. Like actually where I see or what I want to do with my business is almost, I mean, there is a finite level to things, but it is just everywhere.
Yeah.
So the things I love doing, the things I want to be doing, the things I can see that I know within myself I'm capable of doing, and I've already got receipts that show I can do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so if I'm here, but I want to be up here, that's where, that's an ether to me that I don't really comprehend unless people who do fall into traps of seeing the influence and saying, that looks analogous to kind of what I want, so I'll,
if I just replicate
I'll replicate that, and it never works. I mean, I'll hold my hand up and say I've fallen into that trap several times. I'll hold my hand up and say, look, I thought that was the way to do it, because that have that I wanted, or I thought that was the have I wanted, I wasn't recognizing the thing I need to be, or actually what I need to do it. I just saw the end goal without understanding the means. And I think that I've certainly had reflections like that going through the business journey, and just going, look, actually, what can I do to be authentic to the vision that I'm working towards? How does that happen? And I think a lot of the things you talk about really, really resonate with that. I think it makes so much sense to go, no, actually, we need to sit down, all of us as business owners, and go, let us be very clear about the vision we have.
100%.
Otherwise, what are we actually working towards then?
So look, Sam, here's the interesting thing that happens. And when you go and look at people's lives, you'll see the cycle happening. When we focus on the have, without addressing who do I have to be and what do I have to do, that have becomes an insatiable monster. And it keeps demanding. It keeps demanding more of us. It keeps demanding, so marriages fail. Children become, they feel like, where's their dad? Where's their mom? It's just business all the time, and it takes over their lives. The thing that happens when we focus on who do I need to become and what do I need to do, inevitably, we have to face the reality of who we are right now. Some of the things that is not nice, the things that are the obstacles that are stopping us from the haves. And the amazing thing that I've seen is that when we focus on the areas that deserve our focus and attention, that deserves our time and our effort, everything else becomes so much easier and enjoyable. Because what you say yes to automatically means that you say no to something else. You cannot chase have and work on yourself at the same time. It's on the other side of the equation. Be times do equals have. If you focus on this side of the equation, you do not have time to mess around with a have. But when you work on who you are and what you're doing, immediately, what happens is you have more space, because you're getting rid of the clutter. You're getting rid of the things that are consuming the parts that should grow and hold them back. By removing those parts of yourself, immediately it creates space to grow. And so to come back to your question about how do I go from a business owner that starts with passion and that, and then I'm here, Sam, and I want to be there, is you do need people in your corner that's going to facilitate and help that growth with honesty, with care, with sensitivity, but also sometimes be the person that says, hey, bro, that was just terrible. I don't know where that came from, but that sucked, man.
We're honest with each other like that, André, aren't we?
All the time. What are you doing?
Call yourself a videographer. What the hell?
What was that? Shot on the Pentax. I do want to say this. People often ask us, oh, what do you know about my industry? And quite frankly, sometimes nothing. But we do understand business.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right when it comes to to focusing on the haves. It's so easy to think of. I look back to when I first started. I didn't see the process. I knew that I loved videography. I knew that I wanted to pursue that as a career, but it was more focused on I want to earn this much a month with my videography. And the thing is, you get to that point, and it's
Which is the have, right?
Which is the have, and it's like, well, now I need more. Like there's another thing. Well, I already have this, so now I've adapted my lifestyle to that. So now the have is more. I need to earn more, and actually, what I focus now is I just want to do videography for the rest of my life. That's it.
Yeah.
And that kind of like, if I do X, Y, and Z, as long as I'm doing videography, the rest doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I think people just forget that. And there's a second side to that, is that especially now we have so the easy access to, just like you touched upon, the influencers, and it's so easy to feel connected to these people that are doing these things that you wish you could do, or you hope one day you can do, but you don't, because of the nature of social media. People always post the good stuff.
Yeah.
No one sits there and says, you know what, I was cold calling last week, it killed me.
Yeah.
No one says that.
Or they do, you do see it, but I must say I don't ever see it come across particularly authentically, or at least not in a way that.
Oh, I really struggled, but look at me now.
But look at me now,
Yeah.
There is that. It's like, oh no, by the way, did you know that I struggle with this and this? Well, I didn't, but I also, you're not presenting that, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, that's not authentic to any message you're giving us. Now, I'm probably generalizing, and there probably are some very good examples of this, but I think that vulnerability is how we build trust. In organizations, in any kind of structure that we're trying to build, and we have to be vulnerable with ourselves too, and be very honest with ourselves. And hey, look, if it takes someone to say, look, mate, you probably need to realize that this part of you or this trait is potentially quite deleterious or potentially quite destructive, that can be very hard to hear. But actually knowing that, and then starting from the real point you need to start from to sort out the B, to sort out then how you do to get to the have, I think is very, very important.
I think the one thing that is valuable to understand in the coaching relationship is that I'm not in it to just sign anyone I can. There has to be something there. Because if I'm going to genuinely care for you, I'm going to do a better job of being there for you. If we don't get along...
Yeah, no, exactly. That's with everything.
It's never going to fly.
And I think that's to your question earlier about business coaches, people that have maybe a little bit of success in an area, then choose to become a business coach / wellness coach / and I'm not mocking that or knocking it at all. I think that often what you're hearing is the indecision of who they want to be. I'm a business coach because I love people. I've always loved people. I've always wanted people to thrive. I've always wanted people to be successful. When I was a pastor, I didn't just deal with the spiritual side of things. Often people would ask me things about business as well, because I was bivocational. National sales manager for an IT company and for a manufacturing company, and that, I understood business principles, sales, marketing, etc. But at the heart of what I do is, if I worked with you, André, with you, Sam, or together, I would want to see you succeed. I want to see you and your families thrive. I want you, when I see you, for you to be happy. But I also want to be there for you when you're not and you're struggling. And it cannot be authentic if I'm not convinced that this is what I'm really called to do, if I'm meant to do this. And I've had to wrestle through that for myself. It's like, why do I want to become a business coach? Because when you do it for the pay, when you do it for the fame, whatever, which it really is not, business coaching is a tough gig, man. It's a tough gig. People still reject you. It's not like people are queuing out the door to come and speak to me because I'm so wonderful. No, they treat you with disdain. They treat you with... I remember after that one of those calls, I remember thinking like, I just want to post on LinkedIn, guys, please remember you also started out sometime. That's literally what I felt one day, of how I was treated by a business owner and how I was spoken to as a business owner. I was kind of like, if you were in my shoes, how would you wanted someone to speak to you? Yeah. That's often how I start a conversation in my head. It's like, if I was in this person's shoes, and I've been there. When we moved here, we had no one to support us. We were getting to know everything by ourselves. And it was tough, man. It was hard. Now, when other people contact me, friends from South Africa, from other parts of the world, and says, how do we do this? I've got compassion. I've struggled as a business owner. I've struggled as someone who moved countries. I've struggled and understand the pain that takes. I want to be that person for someone else. That's why I'm coaching. And I think that's what you're feeling when you see the marketing of those people. That's what you're feeling when you speak to them, is they actually undecided as to why they're really doing it. They thought it'll be an easy gig. It is not.
That's the thing. I think it's so important to, like I said from the beginning, like you don't have necessarily this crazy idea of how you're going to get to things and how you're going to get there. But it's just about actually sitting with yourself and thinking, okay, well, if I want to achieve that, this is a journey, and you need to be willing to take those steps and accept that at points you just won't know what the answer is, and you will have to ask the questions.
I mean, it sounds like, a practical example, you moving to the UK, like that's a huge leap. You took, however many attempts to do one thing to then get a vocation to say, look, this is the right thing to do. That's massive. Like that doesn't just happen. That is a commitment to a further end goal.
Yeah.
And if I may ask, I guess, then, there's some really great things you mentioned here, but let's give us some receipts. So what about some real life stories of clients, anonymous, of course, where you've come in and you've turned things around, or what situation from start to finish broadly? Give us some clues.
I think there's multiple levels, because some of the journeys are still ongoing.
Of course,
some of them I've just started. I think one of them is a longer standing client, working with him on his team and on himself, coming out of a certain situation that was not favorable to the dynamics of the team, and then unpacking what led to that point, and then realizing that there were some areas within himself where he felt lacking, and that contributed to the environment that was not helpful. Kind of like, okay, I got someone to run with this, it's going to work now, they're the answer to my solutions. And then subsequently it reflecting in how the business functioned and therefore performed. Addressing that self-confidence in that area, addressing the team dynamics, and sometimes it's just no longer the right place for people. And having those movements happen, dealing with it well and effectively, not just a blow up and everybody scatters, kind of like, grenade. Whoever remains, they're the real team. They're the committed. But everybody is shattered. But then seeing coming out of that a confident business owner who's no longer afraid to ask the tough questions because they know the answers will be the ones that they need, not just hope for. A confident team that is firing on all cylinders, and then the success that follows that. Because now there's a solid foundation where everybody is bought in, everybody is firing, not always happy. Life is real, right? By the way, one of the things I don't like that I've encountered here is when people say, leave your personal life at the door. What the heck? Do we want schizophrenic people? How do we do that? How do you say to somebody who's just lost a family member, leave that at the door, because when you're here, you're at work, and I want your 100%. No. What we want is engaged people, emotionally, and from a capacity perspective of how they think about their work. And so dealing with those kind of dynamics within that context was very helpful. It created a more secure working environment. It created a more of an open, flat platform for people to engage with each other and then become the kind of team that he wanted, rather than the dictatorial style of, let's get this done, you will do this, you will do that, and kind of hoping it happens. So that is, from a team perspective, that got turned around quite well. Yeah.
Okay, and with that example that you gave, you mentioned about the business owner themselves, them having lack of confidence of certain areas. What areas were they specifically? Are you able to say what sort of things were
holding people accountable?
Okay,
because there wasn't a clear communication of expectations.
Yeah.
A clear response of responsibility. Okay, so I understand. André, will you please top up this glass of water for us? And André goes like,
God, you've got André nailed.
That's pretty much me, actually.
That's absolutely what André does to anything we ever ask him to do.
The glass is still not filled, André. What the heck, André? How many times do I have to ask you, André? Or
I didn't see the glass.
brilliant. That's absolutely
Get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
André will just use.
Hey, André, hey man, I'm running low on some water. Would you mind please filling this for me?
Absolutely.
Often, communication is the response we receive. If we don't get the kind of response we were hoping for, it's maybe we didn't communicate that well. Maybe we didn't do it in a manner that is helpful for the person. Didn't even know there was a flippant glass there, man. Well, André. And I think the other thing is when you have clear expectations, when you have clarity around roles and responsibilities and ownership, then things get done, right?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so that sounds like that was that must have been a huge spanner in the works for that business, to then be able to realize actually, I'm saying a ton of things, or I'm trying to say some things. I think I'm saying the right thing, but the other person isn't responding in the way that I should. Yeah, we never make that connection until someone tells us.
Yeah,
do we? Because we're seeing the world through our eyes.
Yeah.
That's it.
What's that saying? What's the definition of madness?
Doing the same thing again and again and expecting different results.
Yeah. How often do you do that?
All the time.
Sure.
All
the time.
All the time.
Sometimes you need someone to say, "Are you mad? You're doing this," and often that happens with business owners, is that, myself included, we want to feel like we're doing something, hoping that it will deliver change, right? And so we do the same thing that's just branded a little bit differently, packaged a little bit differently, but essentially it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a very specific personal example of that was when I first made the switch to go, my own business. My idea of getting clients was I'm just going to spam everyone with emails. And sometimes that works. For some types of clients, that works. But I was getting nowhere. But in my head, I was like, no, I need to send another 5, 10
do more
emails.
and more and more. Yeah.
This is clearly not working, so I need to reach more people. Until my partner, she said, why don't you just stop sending emails and actually go see these people?
Yeah.
Just walk in through the door. What are they going to do? They will have to talk to you. And hey, it worked.
It's exactly.
Same thing.
And occasionally call security and call the police. And just,
Hey, I got a client.
Sorry, this guy says he's a blind videographer. Not really buying the story. Can you get him out, please?
Can you remove him?
It's so interesting, that thing is we are sometimes the hamster on the wheel.
Yeah.
I'm so happy I'm doing something, but actually we're not being effective. I found it myself, just before I came here, I was on a call with planning my launch event, right? And I thought, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And I went into that meeting, I'm prepared, I've got a plan. And then we unpacked it a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh. I had no clue. I had maybe a small element of it, but the reality is I didn't have the full scope of what is required. And I've done events before. I've organized events before, but But because I'm so eager for things to be successful and run well, I got so super focused on the task that I kind of lost line of sight of other things that's as and if not more important.
Oh, you can get so easily tunnel visioned in that when there's something that's particularly high stakes for you, whether it actually is in reality or it's just your perception of it.
Yeah.
Oh man, we do that all the time. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And to be conscious of that is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because we can all say to ourselves, and we were talking earlier about how when the pressure's on, that's when you can really tell about somebody, etc., how they're getting on. But when the pressure's on. That's where you do get those blinders, and it just happens all the time. And so it must be to everybody.
It is. Yeah. I might get in trouble for this. We all like to think we're unique, and in many ways we are. But we often face the same struggles and troubles and difficulties and same obstacles. And I think that's both a relief and a bit of a wake-up call. It's like, okay, others can do it. Others got through it. I can too. And a bit of a wake-up call like, I'm not that special. That's me. Every now and again, I need someone to tell me, you're not that great, right? And my wife loves doing that.
Nice.
And my kids
every little bit of reality check is good.
And my kids, being older, sometimes do the same. But I think that's one of the greatest things for me is that moment where a spark happens and the realization happens with my clients, and you go like, they get it, and that realization of okay, I can do this, or I've had a breakthrough. Because that's when opportunity opens up. Yeah. That's when the ceiling is removed. That's when breakthrough starts. We're called action coach. We want people to take action. We want people to move on. We hold people accountable, Sam. And often we need that. We just need someone we said we're going to do this, and they're not going to listen to all our excuses, and they're going to just keep us accountable. Why? Because they're for us.
I mean, that's super interesting to see it and hear it. You talked about your launch event. What kind of other actions are you taking? What are the sort of, this is a Sam question.
Yeah.
What are the next steps for you? Where is Vern going to be? What will or what are we expecting to see?
Yeah. Well, I need to market it, obviously. If you want to do something like that, you need to let people know that it's happening. And so when we met, we looked at different avenues that we're going to use to get the word out there. Avenue like this, possibly, people that are close to you, that know you, that maybe have, who do you know who? Do your circles of influence know people that would benefit from that? That's why I love BNI. I love networking, because you're in a room of people who are committed to their and everyone else who is with them in the room, their success. And so that's one of the areas where I would go and say, guys, I'm planning the launch event. Who do you know who could benefit from an event like this, where we would give an overview and maybe some great tips and tools to help people be successful that they can implement immediately. Get them in contact with the right people and introduce them to who you are. I'm action coach Horsham. Who the heck cares? Why should they care? And so it's creating an opportunity for people to get to see who I am, to hear my voice, like today. Hear what is precious to me. Why did you choose to do that? And can I be of benefit to you? Is this a connection that is made, and does it offer the kind of value and tools for you to be successful? That's the purpose of it. It's like an introduction, a more personal introduction. We can shout about it on social media. But if you can get people in a room with you, and you can see the value that can be added, that makes connection more likely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that philosophy, and we were actually just talking before we hit the record button for today's podcast about one of the reasons that we do this, and it is about getting that personality, that voice, that person behind the business out there to just realize that there's a lot more that's relatable to us, to everyone, than just words on a page or a LinkedIn post or a tagline. And I love the fact that we are privileged enough to have the opportunity to do it. But Vern, you're presenting yourself in a wonderful way.
Thank you.
And I really hope that more and more people hear about the things and wonderful experiences and potential that you have to offer for business. I think that's wonderful to hear.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And how, if people, obviously we talked about the launch event, obviously this would be a good way to get people to know a bit more about it. Have you got, how are you in like the planning path of that? Is it set in stone? Have you got a date? Have you got a space?
Yeah, so we're firming up. We're looking at the second half of June.
Okay.
Probably in the 20s somewhere. I'm firming that up tomorrow. Marketing will start going out. So if you get a call from someone that you know saying, "Hey, do you want to go to a launch of it?" Say yes. But you'll find me on LinkedIn, posting about it on our website, horsham.actioncoach.co.uk. It will be on Eventbrite as well. And so, I mean, if you know somebody who's struggling for time, who's struggling with team, who's struggling with money, or somebody who wants to grow their business, because we don't just work with people who are struggling. Our goal is to get people to have freedom. And we've worked with major corporations achieving exactly that. So anyone who wants to grow, whether it's away from struggling or towards legacy, those are the kind of people we want to see. So we'll send through some marketing on LinkedIn and on our website, etc.
Very nice. And I think, you say if you know someone, I think everyone kind of needs that, a bit of guidance, a bit of, I think the main bit to take away from this podcast is that a lot of us think we know what we're doing, but we soon realize that, we might know a little, but there's a lot that we can learn, a lot more that we can learn. And obviously, so you're saying if there's anyone out there, I think there's a lot of people out there that could just benefit from it.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good message, André. And I think that one of the other parts of it, like Vern was saying at the beginning, having the humility, the teachableness within us, and recognizing if we don't, maybe we should. And otherwise, how do we grow? How do we grow as ourselves? How do we grow our businesses? That realization, I think, I know I certainly went through a similar journey myself. I'm still going through that journey myself, but I think there's so much that could be benefited if we have that in our minds.
I think to that point, some of the obstacles is people think it's money, people think it's time. Can they afford coaching? And it's a real thing, right? And it depends where your business is at. It depends where you are at. But we've got different options. We've got entry points that can suit the person where they're at. Maybe they don't have a team and they can't afford weekly coaching and they can't, understand that. But we've got a quarterly plan called Growth Club that they can access, that they can then implement the lessons that they learn from that. And then we've got monthly group coaching and we've got one-to-one. It really depends where you're at. And then we've got different masterclasses, 12-week masterclasses where you can send your whole sales team on, and it's all CPD certified, So I think people have got this idea of what coaching is and what it offers. But what they don't realize is you need access to a world beyond yourself. And that's really what we do well, is we provide that access. And if we can break down that perception of what coaching is, then you will be so much the better for it. We implement what we use. I've got my own coach, and it's changed my life, man.
Yeah, I think you did very well at representing that and showcasing that there is a lot more to business coaching than people think or people expect it to be.
Yeah, and I think what you're offering, Vern, is the whole package, right? So you're talking about this treasure trove of information that people can find either for themselves or, as you say, sending a sales team on masterclasses that just optimize everything. And I think that there are different business coaches with different styles, and there are some people who most are very upfront about what they do offer and what they don't, and some will suit others because of just the nature of, I just need this one thing, or my perception is I just kind of need this one issue sorted. But where you're coming from is so vast, it's so deep as well, in a way that I know other business coaches are very clear about the fact that they don't go that deep. Yeah. They don't, I'm not going to go too much into you personally. I'm going to this, that's for somebody else. Yeah. Whereas, you just present that whole package to make it make sense.
Yeah. And I think the benefit is major difference is you don't just have access to me. You know, we coach over 20,000 businesses every week across 80 nations. Every week. Over 3,000 businesses in the UK alone. We've got over 200 coaches in the UK. Over 1,000 coaches worldwide. At the press of a button, I can ask a question and I've got access to a treasure trove of knowledge, now live knowledge. One of my clients asked me a question and I didn't know the answer. And I didn't go like, I was like, I don't know, but I know people who do. Let me get back. And we came back with such a clear strategy. His mind was blown. That's the benefit of going with a business coaching organization that's the top organization in the world. I've been in this business for over 30 years, proven strategies. I was blown away at BizX to see the success stories of people who have been doing this and implementing our operating system for years. And people who haven't, people who've only done it for maybe 12 months or 6 months, and the success that they achieve, it made me do this. I made the right choice.
Yeah, great. That sounds like it was exactly the right choice.
Yeah.
And the journey to get there, all of that just makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like you've got, and this is not to say one is better than the other, but you've got independent business coaches, and then you've got associations like that. And I think it's so important for, especially from my perspective, to, you know, you might not necessarily have the right knowledge about what I do as a business in my industry, but because you have access to thousands of other people that might have worked with people like me before, you know, it's instant. So I think that's so valuable for someone, because you then feel reassured. It's like, oh yeah, okay, fine. Well, Vern was honest about what he knows about my industry, but he also has access to a mountain of other of information, real-time information from specific examples like mine. And I think that's invaluable.
It is.
It's been wonderful. So many insightful things that are making me reflect in real time, as well as I'm sure will give me lots of food for thought, and I'm sure everyone who's listening will feel similar. So Vern, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been so much fun and such a great learning journey as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you very much, man.